Hello everyone and welcome back to 30 Days of Java. Day 8 now. Today we'll be discussing about different types of loops in Java. Our agenda for this video would be to first understand why do we need loops in the first place. Then we'll discuss about different types of loops that are there in Java like for loop, while loop and do while loop. Finally we'll take a look at continue statement in Java. So let's begin. First, let's try to understand why do we need loop in the first place. Suppose we need to write numbers from 1 to 6 on console in Java, then we can do it by writing 6 different system.out.println statements. However, if we use loops, we can write the whole logic in just 3 lines. Now if we increase the count of numbers from 6 to say 100, then without using loops logic would require 100 different console output statements, whereas with loop, the same goal can be achieved with still just 3 lines. In coding, reusability plays a very crucial role, so the logic without using loops is almost always frowned upon, and loops are used in splits. For loop is used to iterate over a range of values or elements in Java, collection, or other iterable objects. The basic syntax of a for loop in Java is as follows. The initialization statement is executed once at the beginning of the loop. The condition is evaluated before each iteration, and if it is true, the loop continues. If it is false, the loop terminates. The update statement is executed at the end of each iteration. A while loop is used to repeatedly execute a block of code as long as the given condition is true. It has the same 3 parts as that of a for loop, but the syntax is a little bit different. As shown in the example below, first there is an initialization statement, then a condition just after while keyword, and finally an update statement. The main difference between a for loop and a while loop is that for loop is generally used when you want to iterate over a finite list of elements, whereas while loop is often used when the number of iteration is not known beforehand or when you want to create an infinite loop. A do-while loop is another type of loop structure that is similar to the while loop. The key difference is that a do-while loop guarantees that the loop body is executed at least once, as the loop condition is checked after the loop body. Now, let's implement all of these loops in IntelliJ. First, let's start with a for loop statement. So we'll type in for and then int I equal to 1, which is the initialization statement, and I smaller than equal to 5, which is the condition statement, and then I++, which is an update statement. Then we'll write sout, which is a shorthand for writing system.out.println, and then iteration space I. Now let's run this program and see what happens. As you can see in the console, it has printed out from iteration 1 to iteration 5. Now let's run this program in debug mode to see what is happening line by line. So for that, we'll first put up a breakpoint at line number 3 and then click on debug first program.main. So the basic flow of control for a for loop statement goes something like this. First, the program goes into the initialization statement, which in this case is int I equal to 1, which sets the value of variable I to 1. Then it goes to the condition statement, which is I smaller than equal to 5. Since the value of I is 1, which is smaller than 5, this expression is evaluated to true. Because the expression is evaluated to true, the flow of control goes to the for loop block of statement. If I press F8 now, it goes to line number 4. Now if I press F8, it prints out iteration 1 in the console, as you can see here. Now the flow would go to the update statement, that is I++. This would update the value of I from 1 to 2, and then the flow would go to condition statement again. I smaller than equal to 5. Since 2 is also smaller than 5, this expression is again evaluated to true. If I press F8 now, it goes to line number 4 again. Now if I press F8, it prints out iteration 2, as you can see in the console. Now this process will keep on happening until the value of I reaches 5. Now in this step, the value of I is 5, as you can see here. Now if I press F8, first it prints out the iteration 5, and then the flow goes to the update statement, which updates the value of I to 6. Now in the condition statement, it is written 6 is smaller than equal to 5, which is not true. So if I press F8 again, it exits the loop, and that's the end of the program. Now we can write the same program in while loop as well. First, let's remove this by commenting it out and then delete its breakpoint. Now we'll type in int I equal to 1, which is the initialization statement, then while, and then the condition, which is I smaller than equal to 5, and then in the block of statement we'll type in sout and iteration space I, and then the update statement I++. Now if I run this program again, you can see it gives out the same response back, iteration 1 to iteration 5. Now before moving on to the do while loop, let's discuss about the difference between a for loop and a while loop. As we have already discussed, the for loop should be used when the number of iteration is known beforehand, whereas the while loop should be used when the number of iteration is not known beforehand. So let's take an example to better understand this. Suppose if you have to create an application in which the application has to keep on running until the user keeps on pressing Y. You can do that using while loop easily. Let's write that out. First, we'll comment this out, and then we'll type in char user input, and then let's set it to Y. Now let's type in while user input equal to Y, then it should print out sout program running, then it should print out press Y to again run the program. Now for taking user input, we'll use the scanner class. We'll type in scanner and then scanner equal to new scanner, then system.in. Now we have an error here because we haven't included Java util package here. So for resolving that, just type in import java.util.scanner. That should resolve the error. Now we'll type in user input equal to scanner.next and then char at 0. Now let's run this program and see what happens. As you can see, it has printed out program running in the console because the user input is first set to Y. Now it's asking us to press Y to again run the program. So if I press Y and then press enter, it again runs the program. If I keep on pressing Y, it keeps on running the program again and again. But if I press anything else, so suppose if I press N, it exits the program. Now this is happening because after it prints out the message press Y to again run the program, it's waiting for our input and then it sets the input to user input variable. If the value is set to y, then the condition is evaluated to true. If it is set to anything else, let's just say n for our case, then this expression is evaluated to false and the loop exits. That is why we use while loop statement when we don't know the number of iterations beforehand. Because a user can press y 1 time, 10 times, or even a million times. That depends upon the user. Now let's build this program using a do-while loop. So first, we'll comment out this part. And then we'll type in char user input equal to y. And then do. Inside here we'll type in sout program running sout press y to again run the program, and then use the scanner class, take in the user input. Then set that to user input variable scanner.next.char at 0. Then we'll type in the condition in while. We'll type in user input should be equal to y. Then the terminator. Now if I run this program again, it's running just exactly like the while did. If I press y, it again runs again and again. But if I press n, it exits the loop. So what's the difference between a while loop and a do-while loop? Well, if I set the value of user input to something else, let's just say x in this case, so the condition evaluated should be false because x is not equal to y. But if I run this program, it still executes it. Now the do-while loop at least executes the block of code that it has once, even though the condition is false. Now if I type in n here, it won't be executed. The continue statement is used to skip the rest of the code inside a loop for the current iteration and move on to the next iteration. It is often used in loops such as for, while, or do-while to bypass the remaining code in the loop body and proceed with the next iteration. In the example below, we have a for loop which would iterate over values from 1 to 5 and print them on console. The basic flow of control would follow the following path, top to bottom. But when the value of I becomes 3, it skips the rest of the loop and goes back to the update statement. Let's run this on IntelliJ for better understanding it. Now let's see how the continue statement works in Java. So for that, we'll update this example. First, let's uncomment this. And then just enter and type in if I equal to 3, then continue. Now if I run this program, it prints out all the iteration from 1 to 5 except iteration number 3. Now as we have explained in the slides, that when the value of I becomes 3, it goes to line number 7 that has continue in it, and that prevents the execution of the rest of the loop. It transfers the flow of control back to the update statement, which increments the value of I to 4, and then the loop executes as normal. As always, we'll end this video with a motivational quote which says, "The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be." Thank you for watching and have a great day.